All right, let's get started. Hello, good morning. A big and warm welcome to the first day of Dreamforce 18. What's going to be our best Dreamforce yet? My name is Nick Chen, and joining me on stage is Jonathan Vijaja. We are both from the Platform DevTools team. Now, my team is in charge of building up tools so you can develop more effectively on the Lightning platform. We're in charge of building up things like the Force.com IDE, the Developer Console, and more recently, our Salesforce DX extensions for Visual Studio Code. Today, we are very excited to talk to you about the Apex Replay Debugger. So let's get started. Oh, apparently there's a bug on my screen. So we're not just going to talk about the Apex Replay Debugger. We're actually going to talk about how you can actually banish bugs with the Apex Replay Debugger. All right, now let's get started. So, as with all presentations here at Dreamforce, we have to greet you with the forward-looking statements. Lots of text there, don't worry about reading it. So let me summarize it for you. We'll be showing you a lot of products today, some of which are yet to be available. So if you're making any purchasing decisions, please base them on products that are available today. And now let's get started by talking about Apex. How many of you in the audience knows what Apex is? All right, good, good. And for those of you who don't know it yet, don't worry. Dreamforce is an opportunity for you to go mingle with different things, go to different sessions. And at the end of my slides, I'll actually give you some links to sessions that you can attend to find out more about Apex. But Apex, in a nutshell, is an object-oriented and trigger language for Salesforce. It started in 2007, so it's about 11 years old now. Can you believe that? It shares a lot of features from Java, C#, and PL SQL. So if you're familiar with those languages, you'll feel right at home with Apex. Now, Apex is really, really powerful. You can build anything and everything with Apex. And it offers seamless integration with every other technology that we have on the Salesforce platform, like Lightning, Visualforce, and Flow. How prevalent is Apex? My clicker has stopped working, so I need to go over here. So who is using Apex? We have over 700 million lines of Apex code in production and over 40 billion Apex transactions per month. So as you can see here, Apex is really, really popular. So what tooling does my team actually provide to help make your lives easier when you're developing? There are three main categories, and that's coding, testing, and debugging. For this session, in the next 15 minutes or so, we'll focus on debugging, and we'll focus on the Apex Replay Debugger. So that's enough talk. What I'd like to do now is jump straight to a demo where you can see what we've built with Apex and how we can use the Apex Replay Debugger. And for that, I'd like to invite Jonathan. So as Jonathan is getting set up, I would like you to think about this as a scenario where he's developing something with Apex. And the particular thing he's developing is called Dreamhouse. Dreamhouse is a sample app that we use throughout our conferences. It's an open source app that you can find at GitHub. And what we have here is a property management app. So Jonathan, why don't you show us what you've built?
Thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Vijaja, and I'm super excited to show you an app that we've been building on the Lightning platform called Dreamhouse. Specifically, inside that app is a personal assistant called DreamBot, where you can ask it for help on various topics. Today, we're going to try a topic called Find House, because I know that Nick has been on the market looking for properties.
It's true.
But we'll use Boston as an example. And we'll choose single family with a price range from 800,000 to 1 million. The prices here and the results are fictitious, but you could click on one of them to get more information about that property. So it's a pretty cool tool. You want to try it out, Nick?
Sure. This is really cool, Jonathan. So I'm going to put on my product manager hat right now and try this out because I'm just blitzing this. So what do we do here? We did a find house, if I'm right. Yes, and I'll follow what you did. We used Boston. And let's just do a single family home. Price range 800,000 to 1 million. All right. It's like, Jonathan, something went wrong here. It does look like we've actually encountered a bug during our presentation. Yeah. That doesn't seem so good.
Let's debug it with the replay debugger.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay. So, Jonathan, you go over there first. Switch back to the slides. So before we debug, one sort of advice I have is you don't go in blind. So what I'm going to do on my slides is actually switch over to give you an overview of how the Dreamhouse app actually works, so you have an idea of the architecture, and then delve into debugging. Okay. So here's our journey for today. This is the application lifecycle management cycle. You do planning, coding, debugging, testing, and releasing. Now, in the context of Salesforce DX, which is our Salesforce developer experience, this is the real map of everything that's going on. Lots going on, don't worry about it. Today, we're focusing on the IDEs, text editors, and language services. In particular, I'm going to show you how to debug effectively today. All right? So the first step is understanding from a high-level perspective how DreamBot actually works. So if you come here, we always have our client and server architecture. On the client side, as you have seen on the browser, we were typing into the bot at the bottom left channel. And what happens there is that it actually makes a connection back to the server. So it does this with an Aura action, which is just another name for a lightning action. So it goes over to a bot controller, which is an Apex class, and we'll see more of this during the demo later on. Whatever we type there gets delegated to a bot handler through the handle method. And the bot handler is an abstract class, as you shall see, and it delegates to the concrete classes that will handle it. So if you type in help, it delegates to the handler help. If you type in find house like we did, it goes into find properties. If you type in the SOQL statement, it goes into SOQL. What we would like to do today is actually concentrate on handler find properties. All right. So keep the name of these three classes, bot controller, bot handler, and handler find properties at the back of your mind because they will resurface throughout the demo. Okay. So Jonathan, why don't you kick it off and show us how we can use the Apex replay debugger? Now, as Jonathan is getting set up, we're going to flip over to Visual Studio Code. How many of you in the audience knows about Visual Studio Code? All right, a good proportion of you. For those of you who don't, let me give you a quick introduction to this. It shares the same name as the Visual Studio IDE from Microsoft, but there are two unique differences. First, and the most important one, is that it's free. Okay? So the second thing is also it runs natively on different operating systems. So it runs on Mac, Linux, and Windows. You don't have to do any other things. And what we have done here, and Jonathan is going to show you, is that we have supplemented this with our own extensions called the Salesforce DX extensions of Visual Studio Code. They are also free. They are available on the Visual Studio Code marketplace. And this is what gives Visual Studio Code the capabilities that you can see today. All right, Jonathan, why don't you show us how we can use the Apex Replay Debugger?
Thanks, Nick. So out of all of these free extensions, today we're going to focus on one called the Apex Replay Debugger. I'm going to start off by turning on debug logs with this convenient command. We can see at the bottom that it's enabling logging at the finest granularity, so any action I do in the app will be captured in the log. After that is turned on, we'll go back to DreamBot and try to reproduce the bug again. So Nick, could you type in what you typed in earlier?
Sure, definitely. Since I'm the one who caused the bug, it should be my responsibility to give Jonathan a proper repro for this. So this is another tip or trick when you're doing debugging. Make sure you have an accurate reproduction of the actual issue. So I remember I did this, and I typed in Boston. I did single family. Price range was 800,000 to 1 million. Okay. Okay, so we still have the reproduction of actually the bug, so that's good. I think this is going to help you use the Apex Replay Debugger.
Yeah, this is very good. So the next step is for me to get the debug log, and I can do that with this command, get Apex debug logs. This is going to query all of my logs from most to least recent, so I'll choose the topmost one. And after this is done downloading, you guys can see that this is what a debug log looks like. This is what people have been using for a long time to figure out what's going on in their app. It's quite painful, but the Replay Debugger is going to make it so much easier. So easy that you could right-click this log file and start a debugger session with it. But before I do that, I'm going to open a class called Handler Find Properties, because we know that this is the class that handles that find house topic. And we can see here that it handles several parameters like minimum price, maximum price. Earlier we ran into an error after we gave it the maximum price, so I'm going to set a breakpoint at line 41, and we're ready to start a debugger session with this log file.
Okay.
Notice at the top that we have familiar debugging tools so that I could run to my breakpoint and step over my code. And as I step over, the variables on the left-hand side of the screen are updated. We also have hover functionality, so I could hover over a variable in my source code and see its value. Let's continue stepping through this code, and we can see that we actually ran into an exception, an error. And the error message here is that it's an invalid decimal. And if I zoom in just a little bit here, Nick, I can see that there's a white space at the end there.
Oh, this is a nasty habit of mine when I'm doing demos. I like to put spaces at random positions everywhere. So this is actually the bug right here. Okay, so we have this. Let's go ahead and fix this, if you don't mind.
Fortunately, the fix is quite simple. So let me stop this debugger session real quick, and we'll go back to Handler Find Properties to see what it's doing. We can see here that it's taking minimum price and maximum price as strings, and it's using decimal dot value of to convert them to decimals. So what we can do is we can trim white spaces from the strings.
Wait, can you do that again, Jonathan? That looks really cool. What feature is this?
VS Code gives me context-sensitive auto-completion so that I know trim is a valid method to use.
Okay, so it actually knows that min price and max price are actually strings, so it gives you completion only for that variable type. This is really, really helpful.
After making that change, I'll push my source code to the org. And after this is done accepting my source, I will try to reproduce your bug again, Nick.
Okay.
So we'll try to find a house.
Go ahead.
In Boston. Single family home with a price range from 800,000 to 1 million with the space at the end.
All right, perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, we have actually fixed a bug live in front of you with the Apex Replay Debugger. So we've seen how we can use the Apex Replay Debugger to sort of fix bugs. What else do you use a debugger for? Instead of just fixing bugs, it also gives you the ability to find out more about how your code actually executes. So as I'm looking at this, one thing that pops in my mind is I'd like to figure out how things work behind the scenes. Like, how is this response actually generated? Jonathan, can you show me how we could use the Replay Debugger to do something like this?
Certainly. So earlier we inspected some basic variables like strings and decimals, but it would be nice if we could see this list of properties right here. So I'm going to move this breakpoint from line 41 to line 55. And since we had just verified the fix, I could get the latest debug log through the usual method. And I'll grab the topmost one. And then we can start a debugger session with this log file. When I run to that breakpoint, you can see that there's a value for properties, but it's not clear how many properties there are. This is a drawback in the beta version that we released in the summer. However, in Winter 19, we supplemented the Replay Debugger with a very powerful feature called Heap dumps that should help with this. So I can show you how that works, Nick.
Okay, so Jonathan, before showing the audience about heap dumps, let's go back to the slides so we can give a bit of explanation of how heap dumps work and what they actually do behind the scenes to make your debugging experience much easier. So we've seen how we can actually step through code. Let me give you a high-level overview of how the Apex Replay Debugger works behind the scenes, because I think I'll help you actually understand this more. So on the left-hand side of the screen, I have a very simple sample class. It's just doing a bit of integer assignments. So what happens when I run it is that it generates this log on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, there's lots there. What I'm actually going to do is just trim it a bit so you can see the relevant lines. So as I run this, which is sample.run, it goes and generates for each statement that I execute. It emits the thing that you see on the right-hand side of the screen. This is what's actually happening with the Replay Debugger. And you notice that it contains a lot of information. This fidelity is what enables it to actually replay and go through it. So right now, I'm using the left-hand side to generate the right-hand side. But it can happen vice versa as well. Using the right-hand side, I can get back to what's going on the left-hand side. Now, one of the limitations of this is that if you go into a collections or a thing, this is really, really common, you wouldn't be able to get that information. So if I change my sample.cls into something like this, and then I concentrate on here, you'll notice that it just shows my user debug. And I've put in at the top here actually 100 items, but it shows me up to the 10th item only. And this is a limitation. When you're debugging, you actually want to see more. So what happens here is that this is going on. Now, in Winter 19, when the debugger is actually going GA, what we've done here is added this capability to your gutter, which is called a checkpoint, as you'll see in a few minutes. And what this does is it emits this magical statement that's a heap dump. And with this heap dump, we actually enable you to capture more information, to see everything that's going on in the Apex runtime in terms of memory. All right, with that, Jonathan, why don't we bounce back and you can show us what's new in the Winter 19 release of the Apex Replay Debugger.
Okay, so let's see heap dumps in action. I'm going to turn off this debugger session for now, and I'm going to replace this breakpoint with a checkpoint. I have to upload this checkpoint to my org just like I had to upload my source code to the org. We can see at the bottom that it's going through several stages. We verify your org is good to go, and we're uploading the checkpoints. And now we're ready to go to Dreambot and repro the scenario again. So Nick will find a house.
Perfect.
In Boston, single family home with a price range from 800,000 to 1 million. We get the same results as before. So now we can go and get the latest debug log. And after this is done downloading, you guys will see that there is a slight difference in the log. And the difference is, if I search for heap dump, there's a log line there. And this is how we know where to get the extra information about that program execution. Now we can start a debugger session with this log file. And we'll run to the breakpoint that we set earlier at line 55 so that we can see heap dumps. The variables on the left-hand side of the screen look more or less the same, but the biggest difference is now I can expand this list of properties. And within each property, I can see the values. So Nick, this is a very cool, very powerful feature for debugging deep objects and collections.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the new feature of the Apex Replay Debugger. It enables you to go in, drill down into your memory, and see what's going on. We think this will really make it really easy and powerful for you when you're debugging. All right. So let's flip back to the slides and see what else is going on here. So the Apex Replay Debugger, this is our summary slide. It's going to go GA in winter 19. It uses information captured in the Apex debug logs to simulate a debugging session. Logs can be captured on production, sandbox, and scratchshot instances. So it works on all your different instances. It accurately reconstructs everything. It supports stepping in and out. And now we have supplemented with checkpoints for more detailed variables. And of course, I didn't put it on this slide, but this is completely free. You can use it today. You can go and download it. So this will enhance your debugging experience. OK, so this debugger was not just built by the two of us, right? It's built by a lot of different people. Some of them cannot join us today at Dreamforce this year. But I want to give a shout out to all the people who have actually worked on this thing. And also, if you notice, Jonathan has actually a patch over his eye. I want to thank Jonathan for being able to come to Dreamforce. He actually had a bit of a minor eye accident last week, but I'm glad he's here. OK. And as promised, here are other recommended sessions. So if you're here at Dreamforce, please go ahead and join them. If you're looking at a CLI, we have a great session there. Moving to Visual Studio Code from Salesforce Force.com IDE. What I've done is actually show you just a glimpse of things that are going on. So if you go to the other sessions, you get to see all the powerful capabilities that we have for coding and testing in Visual Studio Code. And everything that's awesome in Apex, that's always a good talk to go to, is going on September 26th. And last but not least, sandboxes and scratchshots, so you can see what the differences are. OK. And with that, thank you very much. And of course, join us for the Dreamforce for Developer Keynote. It's going on Thursday at 1 p.m. And what I'm going to do is I'll keep this up here again. And Jonathan and I will be here, happy to take any questions you have. And of course, enjoy the rest of Dreamforce. And I hope you enjoy using the Apex Replay Debugger. We're always happy to hear any feedback that you have. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, folks.